Hello and welcome back to another episode of Come Over for Dinner. I'm so excited you're joining me today. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Betsy Becker. She has been married to Andrew Becker, her husband, for almost 20 years. They celebrate this spring, their 20th anniversary. He's a local physician's assistant. He works at Story Family Medicine here in Moscow, and he also does sports medicine with Logos. He helps with all of their sports teams. They have 4 children of their own, 2 boys and 2 girls ranging from 9 to 18. So busy parents. And she also runs Salt Bakery from her home. She's been doing it about 3 years, and I'm going to let her tell us a little bit about that too. So welcome, Betsy.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself. I mentioned some of the things, but you go from there.
Okay. So I have been in the area now for a little over 25 years. My family moved here back in 98 so that my brother and I could go to Logos. My husband and I met at Logos, but we were not high school sweethearts. I can actually trace back to the day was graduation day that I became interested. So
did y'all graduate at the same time?
Yes, we were the same class. And so God was very kind and kept us from a high school romance.
So guys, graduation caps and gowns can be fashionable. Apparently it caught her eye.
Yeah. That's the thing that did it. No. So yeah, we got married in college almost 20 years ago now.
Did y'all attend the same college?
No, he was at Wazoo and I was at U of I.
Okay.
So we were border rivals, theoretically, unsuccessfully.
But you were in the same circles to continue seeing each other and talking.
Same circles. Yep. Same circles. And that was a lot of fun. We were 8 weeks pregnant with our first when we graduated college. So we just had everything all lined out for us. And I think that was the last moment that anything seemed to go to plan.
Right. God had different plans for you.
for the rest of our lives. Yeah. And then we did 1 year of school in Spokane for his physician assistant school. And then we've been here ever since. And our oldest is graduating from Logos this year.
That is so exciting.
Been there for 13 years now. So yeah, it's really fun to see the next generation coming up. And
that is very exciting.
So I started Salt Bakery officially 3 years ago. I have always loved baking. In high school and college, when there was an upcoming test, some people organized their binders. I baked.
Stress relief.
Yep, stress relief. It was just more fun. Like the fruit was just more enjoyable than a test.
And your friends were the taste
testers.
Yeah,
and my family. Yeah, exactly. People had asked me for a while, like, why don't you start a bakery? And I was like, well, I have 4 kids and I don't like waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's pretty much all you need to know. But, my youngest was getting older. I was having more time at home to do stuff. And I wanted to make sure that I was not, frittering away my time. And so I had toyed with the idea. Back in 2019, I started figuring out what would I call it? And I was like, well, I don't think that any baked good is complete without salt. So I was going to call it Salt Bakery because it's just not the normal thing. It's not like sugary sweet sort of thing. So that was the idea behind the name. And so I played around with the idea and I designed stickers and stuff like that. And this was at the height of, all the crazy. Oh, I just realized it was 2021, not 2020. That makes sense. Yeah. So 2020 was when I had started thinking about doing it. And, life was crazy at the time for everybody in various ways. And there was just such an atmosphere of tension and anxiety. And just this, what side is everybody on? Do these people that I'm interacting with are if I mention the taboo subjects, which way is this conversation going to go, that sort of thing. And so that I didn't love that. That wasn't a super fun thing to live in. And I was like, how can we change this? What can one person do about this?
How can we get back to community and friendship?
Yeah. And fellowship. And then I had forgotten about this part, but my husband reminded me, 2 months ago on the anniversary of January 6th, that the fallout of January 6th was of 2021 was the thing that really spurred me on, which
pushed you over the edge.
Pushed me over the edge. I had forgotten about it, but just all of the conflict on social media and stuff like that, and people just greater and greater divisions being apparent. That was the thing that pushed me over the edge. And January 20th of 2021, I officially launched the bakery. I posted a picture of the Bible verse on my Instagram account And it was the one that the reference has always been at the bottom of all of every tag that I put on everything. It's Nehemiah 8:10, which we actually just read this morning in the Bible reading challenge, which is fun. But the verse is, then he said to them, go your way, eat the fat and drink sweet wine and send portions to anyone who has nothing ready. For this day is holy to our Lord, and do not be grieved, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. So one of the goals behind the bakery, the format for it is that I give away half of what I bake. And I give it away anonymously. Nobody gets to know who has suggested them to receive a baked good. So the idea behind that was that people would be receiving things and they would have no idea who it was from. So they would be walking around town, and the people that they would see, the faces that they would look into, I wanted to be less of a, does this person disagree with me, and more of a, it could have been this person who suggested me to receive this box of baked goods or this bag of bagels.
That is very special.
So that's what I launched into, and it was crazy busy for the first few months, and the reception was wonderful, and it was such a blessing to me and my family, not just to the people who were receiving it, but I was baking a ton at that time. And so every day after school, my kids would hop in the car and we would run and do deliveries. And so my boys loved just running to people's doors and running into people that they knew and handing them a bag of bagels, because, that always puts a smile on people's face.
For sure.
And saying blessings from friends. And so that's just how it all got going. And things have definitely petered out, and I'm not doing it as much as I was 3 years ago, but it is still, my favorite part of it is the gifting of baked goods. And another thing that I was hoping to accomplish with it was just to encourage people to look around them and see who could use encouragement, to see who needed a little pick-me-up or whatever. Like, there's so many different situations that we have gifted baked goods to. One thing that I mentioned just a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to try not to cry here, but one of my favorite deliveries to do is to families who have recently suffered a miscarriage. And I love sending my 11-year-old to deliver it because he's my rainbow baby. And so being able to see him run up to the door and hand things to a grieving mom or a grieving dad, and to be able to see that, to see the whole video of that timeline instead of just the snapshot, to know that God can redeem all of these situations and that he has a plan. And all of that is a great blessing to my heart. And so it's not just the families that we're delivering to, that it's a blessing to.
It's a blessing to you and your family.
Yeah.
Wow, what a ministry, and what a blessing to those people that receive it. I mean, to be in that situation, to be a mom that's hurting, and to be just comforted with delicious baked goods. They're not on their feet in the kitchen doing it at that moment in
exactly.
time. And they have families that they want to be giving things like that to, little kids often.
Yeah.
And to be able to receive something like that, it's just such a gift of love.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the stuff she makes is amazing. It's delicious. It's not a trial to eat. I mean, she has given boxes to Logos South where I work. Our building is the first and second grade. And I mean, if you walk in that staff room and there's a salt box there, a salt bakery box, it's the highlight of the week.
Well, good.
And there's usually a little sample of things. And so then the hardship becomes, okay, now which one do I take? Can I shake the box? No, you can't take the box.
Can I take the whole thing home?
Can't take the whole thing. Sometimes we'll cut a little piece off or cut it in half or whatever so we can sample a couple of things. But I think my favorite are your berry scones and the espresso
Those
cookies.
Are so popular.
It's very good. I do not know the recipe to the espresso cookies because that would be dangerous.
They're so small. You can just eat like 5.
You
and
can
it's fine.
keep eating them over and over and over. Yes, they're small and just, so good.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love that being a ministry, and I love that not only do you gift them, obviously, but do you sell if people wanted to order from you?
Yeah.
So you're going to have a little bit of a business, some income for your family.
Yep.
And then also being able to gift it. That's
Yeah.
just wonderful.
And the funniest thing is, like, I've had other side gigs, and I still have other side gigs that I do, but I'm just pointing out the way that God has blessed this endeavor is that this has been the most financially fruitful endeavor I've done, which is just weird. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I'm not charging a ton. I'm giving away half of it, but God has just really seen fit to bless us through this. And it's been wonderful all around. But honestly, the thing that keeps me going, the thing that makes me keep doing it is gifting things to people. Because if that wasn't part of it, I would have quit a long time ago.
It wouldn't. It's so much hard work that it wouldn't be worth it if you weren't having that joy in doing it.
100%.
Yeah. And obviously, if you're giving half away, your motive is not to, have lots and lots in the bank.
Right. Yeah. That's not the goal here.
It's not the goal. And
keep it going and to keep being able to do this for other, for other
and
people.
to be able to buy the ingredients, because that's an expensive endeavor.
So like I said, 8 weeks pregnant with our first when we graduated college, and that was the last moment that things really just kind of went as we had planned them. We had secondary infertility, and so we wanted 18 months between our kids, and we ended up, our first two are 3.5 years apart. So there was a lot of testing, a lot of figuring out of, what's going on. I did a ton of research on my own, and we found a great OB here in town who was willing to listen and hear my thoughts on what was probably going on, and he concurred. And so we went through a couple different medications, finally found a cocktail of medications, vitamins, stuff like that worked. And the other wrinkle is that I found out that I have a blood clotting disorder. So once I was out of risk for miscarriage early on because of my PCOS, there was then the risk of blood clotting. So anxiety was definitely a struggle for me.
And that happened after the first one that you found all this out.
Right.
You were trying to have a second one. So with the first one,
you thought,
was
easy breezy. This
great.
is no problem. Yeah.
We have this timed out. In 18 months, we're going to have a second one.
Yeah. We can plan. No.
And then God gives you this trial.
Yep.
And that's
100%.
A lot to go through.
Yeah. And so there was a lot of, it's hard to be looking around at all the other people who had a baby with you the same time as your first one, and they've got, 2 more, and you're still like, what
is wrong with me?
What is wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? All of that. So, but we got pregnant with our second, our Eva Joy, and she'll be 15. Andrew started PA school. I think he officially started 2 months before she was born. And then he left for one of his deep dives in Seattle for 6 weeks when she was 6 weeks old. So we took a break from, trying to have babies for a little bit after she was born. But then as he was nearing the end of PA school, we're like, okay, we want to have them as close together as possible. And so got pregnant.
Did the problems continue? Were you having to do all the same type things to try to have another baby?
Yeah, all the same stuff. When we figured, okay, now if we got pregnant now, baby would be born after you're done with school. So we'll go ahead and start trying now, because we knew our cocktail. We got pregnant fairly quickly, but then went in for our first ultrasound, and there was no heartbeat, and baby was measuring, I think, 3 weeks behind. So that was difficult. Andrew was not there with me at the ultrasound. He was down doing his family medicine practicum down in Lapway. And so I had to call him at work. And for years after that, he would, when I would have to call him at work, he would be nervous picking up the phone.
Like it wasn't a joy. It was more of terror.
It was like, if she has to call me at work, something is definitely wrong. Yeah. So that was our miscarriage, and named our baby Amara Christian, because we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. And Amara is bittersweet. Christian was a family name. So we figured that name worked pretty well. And then, reading up on all the stuff, how long do you have to wait to try again? How does that all work? And we're ready for the long haul. Like, okay, it's going to take a little while again. This is going to be fine. 6 weeks after my miscarriage, we found out we were pregnant, which is just does not, when we look at it, we say this doesn't fit with our story. But obviously, when we look at it through the lens of God loving us, this totally fits with our story. This is exactly what you would expect to happen. So I think Amara would have been due the end of January. Aaron was born middle of April. And so it's just such an interesting thing to look at the providence of God and know that if we hadn't lost Amara, we would not have Aaron. It would not have been possible. And he is, of course, a joy. He's our first son. And
I can't imagine life without
Yeah,
him.
exactly. 100%. I mean, obviously, if Amara had survived, she or he would have been amazing as well. And we would have been so grateful. But
But you have to trust God's perfect plan for
100%. Yeah. And so definitely through that difficult providence, God showed his shining face. So we're very grateful for our little 11-year-old now. And then, of course, next one, Daniel, we were still terrified, but he was also a healthy little guy. So that's our 4 on earth and 1 in heaven.
That is wonderful.
So, yeah. And so he applied to PA school, didn't get in the first year for a couple of reasons. And so he thought that to improve his application, he would become an EMT because, it's just kind of expanding his experience. The EMT thing plays into another aspect of hospitality that we've really enjoyed working on together. So back, let's see, when did we start this? It was before COVID because COVID ended it. So I think we probably started in 2016, 2017. The way that the Moscow Ambulance Company works is there's 5 different crews and they rotate call. Mm-hmm. So every 5 days, your crew is on call.
And this is volunteer?
This is all volunteer. And so every Friday that Andrew's crew was on call, he was the crew boss at the time, every Friday they were on call, we would say, come over for dinner, literally. It started because he was on a call with some college students. They finished up the call. They were at Gritman, writing up their report. And he's talking to this kid, and this kid's like, well, I've got $5 in my bank account. I got to go figure out what's for dinner. So I'm going to go take care of that. So Andrew came home with this, and he was like, there's got to be something we can do. There's got to be something we can do here. So I ran with that. I was like, what if we do just invite the whole crew over every Friday you're on duty? And he's like, yeah, let's do that. Let's start with that. So we did that, and we combined it with training for the crew. So they have to have it's just like any other medical profession field. You have to have continuing education. So what we would do was we would have the crew over for dinner at like 6 and then plan to start training around 7. And so it was super fun because we would have an ambulance and a fire truck and a paramedics rig, parked on our street. And
your neighbors probably wondered what is happening with them every week.
What is going on over there?
Why do they have constant emergencies?
Yeah. What is the deal? And of course, so this was, what did I say, 2017 maybe? So our boys were 5 and 3 at the time. So having, a bunch of guys and girls in uniform and having fire trucks parked outside was heaven for them.
Absolutely.
There were some interesting logistics to work through with that because it was just an open invite. So up to 30 people could come or as few as 5. And so it's a matter of what do I want to make? Is it going to be able, can I freeze it? Can I send it back to the station with whoever does come, which is what we normally did. So got really familiar with restaurant supply store and to-go containers and that sort of thing.
And what a blessing to have that to go.
Yeah.
I mean, a whole meal or 2.
Yeah. And these poor kids, they're freshmen in college, sophomores in college. They're away from home. They haven't had a home-cooked meal since they were home for Thanksgiving, probably.
This is all volunteer work.
Yeah.
That has to feel like a gift of love. You know, they're getting a home-cooked hot meal.
Yeah. So we did that, and that was so much fun. Our kids loved doing it. It was always a gamble because, 3 and 5-year-old boys don't exactly have a good filter. And so we have these, U of I students or people from, who knows what walks of life sitting around our table, and our kids are interspersed with them. We have no idea what they're going to hear. We have no idea what they're going to say. So I was really nervous at first. The first time we did it, I was like, I have no idea how this is going to go. I don't know what we're getting ourselves into. But it went really well. The whole crew was so respectful and thankful and everything like that. We had our moments of, my boys saying things that I was like, what are they going to say? What are they going to think about us?
Why do you have a tattoo?
Yeah. Or they go to the public high school, so blah, 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 blah.
Right.
No, here we go. But it was really fun. It was really great. And we saw such wonderful fruit from that. Andrew's crew was, there's always this lighthearted competition of which crew is the fastest to respond on calls, which lighthearted competition, but also, pretty important. The city kind of wants an ambulance company that can respond in time. His crew was the fastest. And because the firefighters and EMTs had broken bread at our table had gotten to know each other there. They knew how to work together and how to communicate in emergencies, which worked really well. And we had people who came back years later and said, the reason we can do this is because of those dinners. And that was just like, we had no idea that it would have that much of an impact. I loved being able to come alongside my husband in that effort, to be able to help him in what he did. And, you know, he, as crew boss or as CEO, he's always trying to improve morale and get people to work together well and that sort of thing. And so I loved that opportunity to be able to contribute my skills to help in that. So,
and what better way to build camaraderie and morale than to sit around a table together when it's not the pressure of being on an ambulance,
right? Exactly.
High stress. We're just sitting around enjoying each other's stories and company and fellowship. I mean, what great team building. I mean, when you're thinking of having friends over, you're not thinking team building.
Right.
But for this particular crew, that's exactly what he wanted to do. And obviously being able to have the fastest response times showed that they did accomplish it.
Yeah. And so we had to, you know, there was always coffee available.
That's a must in Moscow. If you don't have coffee,
there's always coffee available.
That is different than the South. It's funny because, and I think it's probably because there's just so much heat, you know, throughout the year. So I mean, people have coffee, but it's not quite the thing it is in Moscow where you really should have coffee at every event.
Every event, yeah. And who knows how late they're going to be up that night. Who knows how late they were up the night before.
That's true.
They probably have homework to get to. And so like obviously the difficulty is, are you going to be feeding 5? Are you going to be feeding 30? Are you going to be able to send it home? Is it going to have to go in the trash? You got to figure that all out. But also, are they going to be able to eat it fast enough, or are they going to be able to drop it and go on a call because they're on call that day? And so you're sitting around the table with a bunch of college guys and a few girls, you know, launching into a plate of cinnamon rolls and bacon or whatever if we're doing breakfast for dinner. They're just eating, and then, you know, everybody has a radio on their hip and they all go off at the same time, and everybody jumps up and runs out. And, you know, maybe one of my kids was in the bathroom at the time and they come back out a minute later and they're like, wait, where'd everybody go? I'm like, well, there was a call, so we'll see.
Do they come back to your home after the call and finish their cinnamon rolls? Because that would be really sad.
Or you know, just two of them will come back and they'll like grab a big plate to go, that sort of thing. But yeah,
that was really fun times. Well, share with us one of your favorite menus. I'm sure in planning this, you did think through all the things you mentioned, but you probably also were thinking through, what can I serve that will last if they're not here? You know, like if it's not cinnamon rolls, you know, but what if it's all ready, but then they're on a call, what can I keep warm or whatever? So that's your menus, I'm sure, were very flexible for company. So what is one of the favorite things that you came up with? What did you serve?
One of the easiest things is just pulled pork. You know, that's such a go-to. And the recipe that I use is so straightforward. It's just, you know, liquid smoke in a bottle and a shaker of, I don't even remember which rib rub it is. I'll have to find that. But
it's one that's pre-mixed. You can buy it in the store.
It's just liquid smoke and pre-mixed rib rub. And people walk in, they're like, do you have a smoker? Like, no, I do not have a smoker. That's a go-to. I also love doing breakfast for dinner. I love making just 2 big, huge sheet pans of cinnamon rolls. And I use an adapted version of Rachel's recipe for cinnamon rolls for that. And people always love having, like, because nobody has time to make a big breakfast usually. And so if you can take some time to make a really big breakfast for dinner.
And people buy cinnamon rolls from a bakery. Occasionally people will make them, but a lot of times it's more like, oh, I need to make cinnamon rolls for Christmas or something. So throughout the year, having one or having a special pastry or something, that is a fun thing to have, especially if you're a college student.
Yes, absolutely. And being able to bless them with a box of them to go home.
Oh, it's just sounds amazing.
Yeah, that was great. I love doing tacos too, like any type of Mexican food, because that way people can kind of create whatever sort of plate they want. So if there's allergies or anything like that or aversions, it's just super easy for people to work around that. Yeah. So pretty straightforward for that.
With the pulled pork, what did you serve? Do you serve mashed potatoes or?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So I just get hamburger buns and I serve it with coleslaw, just a really basic, just cabbage and then the dressing. So I think it's a Carolina coleslaw technically. Really basic though. And then a variety of barbecue sauces, mayo, butter, and then add chips on the side. And I like whenever we host parish group now too. And whenever we're doing something like that might look a little bit small on a plate, I like to use those red and white plaid. We call them boats because it's kind of a smaller dish. Also handy for if you are not sure if you have enough food. If you have a smaller dish like that, people tend to take just a little bit less, and they'll go through a couple times, but you're not going to end up with people with, leftovers on their plate that goes in the trash and then somebody else didn't quite get enough, that sort of thing. So,
yeah, it makes people have reasonable portions in the beginning. And then if they're still hungry, sure, go for seconds. Yeah. But you're not doing a triple portion right at the beginning.
Exactly. Start small.
Sometimes when you're hungry, your eyes are bigger than your stomach.
Absolutely.
You know the saying, and you feel like, oh, I'm starving. But then once you start eating, you fill up a lot faster than you realized you would.
Yep.
You mentioned having butter. What is butter for? Do you toast your buns or do you just sear it on the buns?
Just put butter on the buns before you put the...
I've never done that. I've done barbecue or mayonnaise, but never butter.
Yeah.
So salted butter.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Salted butter.
Is that also a Carolina thing?
Oh, I don't know. Probably not. I'm not from Carolina.
It's just a delicious thing.
Yeah, it's butter. How can you go wrong with butter?
Butter's always good.
Butter is always a winner.
I do concur.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll have to get some of your recipes for these things.
Gladly.
Those are really good and easy meals to put out. I do love a good pulled pork. And yes, making them into sandwiches with some sides, coleslaw you can make ahead of time.
Yep.
Chips you can just buy. That's something off of your plate. No big deal. Mm-hmm. Do you have any favorite desserts that you would serve? I know you mentioned, I consider a cinnamon roll a dessert, even though it is breakfast, but separate from cinnamon rolls.
Yeah, I just love making just chocolate chip cookies. Nobody ever says no to chocolate chip cookies. One of the funny things about the Duty Day dinners was, of course, you have, in one of our questions before we started doing it was, what do we do about drinks? Because, parish group will frequently serve beer or wine. Don't want to serve beer or wine to a bunch of college students who we don't know what their persuasions are. But since they were on duty that day, that took the question off the table. They're not allowed to drink anyway. So that solved that. I called up my brother who was recently graduated from college at the time himself. And I was like, what do I serve? What are fun non-alcoholic drinks to serve a bunch of college students? He was like, chocolate milk. I was like, okay, I can do chocolate milk.
Really great.
So we would have, and my kids obviously loved this part too, because we don't normally buy chocolate milk or soda, but we bought tons of chocolate milk and soda and iced tea and lemonade and stuff like that for these. So that was a lot of fun for them. Serving chocolate milk, serving regular milk, whatever, having just a ginormous plate of cookies. And by plate, I of course mean like 2 foot by 1.5 foot basket, just full of chocolate chip cookies, and being able to set those in front of the college students and be like, just go for it. Just take as many as you want, take them home.
Chocolate milk would be heaven.
Yeah, pretty much. Nobody was ever upset about that. I did a couple I also like making what we call garbage cookies. And the recipe is from my friend Kat Sense. She referred me to it. But you put like potato chips and coconut and marshmallows and chocolate chips in the cookies. And the potato chips, like I can resist a chocolate chip cookie. Mm-hmm. Those can be sitting on my counter, and I don't have trouble saying no to those. But you put the potato chips in those and you get that buttery and that salty. So good.
No wonder she named her bakery Salt. I know what she's talking about. That's delicious.
Yeah. So they're like, what were those cookies we had that one time? I was like, yes, I know what you're talking about. So.
Wow. Yeah. One of the administrative assistants, secretaries that works at Logos South, she will bring chocolate chip cookies. Mm-hmm. I don't know what her special recipe is. I'm going to have to ask her, but she sprinkles salt on top, like the chunky, flaky salt. Mm-hmm. And it is so delicious. Mm-hmm. It gives it a balance of sweet. Yes. It's not overly salty, but it just cuts that sweet just enough. They are so good. It's good that she brings, enough for each of us to have one, maybe
no
two.
More.
But it's hard for me to resist chocolate chip cookies, especially when they're hot out of the oven. Mm-hmm. It's bad. But I could also see that the same thing would happen with these garbage cookies. Yeah. In fact, really, I kind of have an unwritten rule to myself that if I'm going to make cookies, it's for a reason. Mm-hmm. It's to give most of them away. Mm-hmm. We're either having company or I'm going to be sending them with Max to school, or I'm taking them to my school, or, somehow they're getting out of the house because it's dangerous.
They should not stay there.
They should not stay there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny that you mentioned chocolate milk. There's multiple places in town that have a free something for your birthday. Okay. And so last year when he turned 16, we asked some people like, well, where do we go? And one of the places was Dutch Brothers. You can get a free drink for your birthday. And so we went through the drive-thru and I mean, I know it's kind of has a cult following in some places, and all the college kids know what to order and all, so we're like, I don't know what's good. What should he order? He was trying to figure out. And it was so funny because one of the guys in line that was helping us, he said something about, well, a lot of college kids come and get just the biggest size we have of chocolate milk.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Like, I just kind of thought,
okay.
Yeah, I could see that for a study session.
Yeah. Yep.
But it just really cracked me up. He didn't end up getting that, but it was just really funny. I don't remember what he got, but they have all kinds of choices. So I can kind of see where the young people like to go there.
Yeah, that's so funny.
So those are great menus. Let's take a quick break. Are you searching for hands-on activities to help your kids explore the practical side of science? Look no further than your kitchen. Inquisicook blends food science and culinary arts into an engaging program that puts delicious food on the family table. Let Inquisicook do the teaching with lesson videos, reliable recipes, and assessment tools that put students on track for success. Their online platform is easy to navigate and optimized for mobile, so the learning experience can move from the classroom to the kitchen without a hitch. Inquisicook turns curious students into intuitive cooks, not just recipe followers. Say goodbye to the tyranny of the ingredients list and say hello to utilizing what's in season, what's on sale, or what's in the fridge. Visit inquisicook.com to view sample lessons, then check out the recipe gallery to see just how crave-worthy science can be. Another hospitality event that I've heard you put on last summer was your block party. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
We wanted to figure out a way to kind of get to know our neighbors a little bit better, kind of build some more relationships just with the people directly in our area, and also just kind of work shoulder to shoulder with some of the other Christians in our direct neighborhood. I had also started to notice that there were just a ton of church and school families in our neighborhood. And so I set up kind of a large boundary. I think we ended up, goodness, I don't remember exactly how many people we invited, but I think we handed out probably 200 invites. So I figure we invited about 800 people. This is just duty day dinners, large scale, like who knows how many people are going to show up. But I think we had 40 or 50 church families in our neighborhood, in the perimeter that I established for our block party.
You jumped in with both feet.
I was like, let's see what we can do, guys.
That is a huge start.
It was, well, you never know. You never know if nobody's going to show up or if everybody's going to show up.
And logistically, just really quick, when you do a block party, do you have to put in a request to block off the street?
That was a big part of it. And we were initially going to just see about blocking off part of our street, see if that would work. And I was like, oh, I don't know how the neighbors will feel about that. Like if we don't talk to them about it ahead of time, that's just kind of iffy. And we're trying to be good neighbors, not bad neighbors. So I sent out just a big group text or Facebook Messenger, something to all of the ladies from our churches in this neighborhood. And I said, hey, I would love to do this. Does anybody want to help? Please say yes. And so I got a little bit of feedback. And one of the things that somebody mentioned was, why don't we just do it at the park in our neighborhood? And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. There's already bathrooms there. There's a playground for the kids. It's nobody's property.
Big consideration, because you would have had to rent.
Yeah, exactly.
Porta potty.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't want to do that. That was brilliant. And so we ran with that. We did burgers and hot dogs and salads and chips and desserts and drinks. I think I set up a Sign Up Genius website thing. And so I tried to get 8 people to bring grills and the husbands to man them, and just kind of guessed how much we would need: burgers, buns, all of the toppings and stuff like that, and desserts and salads. And had people sign up to bring tables, people sign up to help set up and clean up. I wasn't sure exactly how or when to invite an entire neighborhood. I didn't want to send out the invite too early because I didn't want people to forget. I kind of wanted it to just be a casual last minute type thing. We did the block party on a Saturday, and I think we took invites around on Monday and Tuesday. I got a couple of other families in the neighborhood to help hand them out. I took my girls, my husband took our boys, and we just split up and different people claimed different streets and we just put them on doors.
And how fun for your kids.
Oh yeah. And we definitely treated them to ice cream afterwards because they did a lot of running around.
They were worn out.
Yeah. And then it was super fun the night before. We just ran around and picked up grills from people's homes who couldn't bring them themselves. And so we just had them in the back of my truck. And then I bought a couple of kiddie swimming pools for the drinks and a bunch of bags of ice. And then we just kind of, everybody converged on the city park. And we had a couple of people who brought canopies to shade it. We set up like 4, 5, 6 tables end to end and just had a giant, assembly line buffet people could go through. We had all the guys grilling and it was fun to I always love having to buy the new things for the big hospitality type stuff. So I bought like the little shakers to put the salt and pepper in ahead of time for those bottlenecks that you maybe don't always anticipate ahead of time for large scale stuff. Just trying to make everything go as smoothly as possible. And we just had the giant aluminum baking trays to roasting pans to throw all the cooked meat in so we could just cycle those through. And it was just so much fun. I think we had about 275 people show up, which was we were just almost spot on with food. We had a little bit extra, and that's the way I always like to be anyway. I always overbuy because the idea of somebody not getting food at my table is like the worst thing in the world.
Yes.
And it was just so fun. And we met so many neighbors and so many people who had moved here within the last 3 or 4 years who had never met any of their neighbors because they moved during COVID or right after COVID. And again, just like with the bakery thing, it's like, we don't know if these people like us or if they, are going to bite our heads off if we say hi. So it was so fun for that reason. And we had older ladies sitting there chatting with teenagers who they had just met, and they were just chatted for an hour and a half, like people who had never met each other before. And it was just so fun.
And they literally lived down the street from each other.
Exactly. Yeah. I was a little bit nervous, not really sure how people would respond. Like, why are you doing this? What is your motive behind this? And I was just like, it was just, I had a number of friends in the neighborhood. We got together and we did this. That's all we're doing here. Yeah. We just want to bless you.
Meet our neighbors.
Yeah. We want to meet you. We want to bless you.
And
yeah,
a meal that you don't have to cook.
Exactly.
Come to the park and enjoy your Saturday.
Can we contribute some money? We're like, don't worry about it. We're covering it. We've got it. But I think, and this is one of those funny things about making your guests feel comfortable, I think that some of them would have been more comfortable if they had been able to contribute. So I think this next year we will do it again at least once, maybe twice. And we will try and figure out a way that people who feel the need to can contribute if they're so inclined, but we definitely don't want people to feel like they have to. We definitely want them to just feel like they can show up. But it was so we pulled up, we brought our van and our truck and we unloaded all the chairs and tables, and my kids were hauling stuff and my boys were carrying coolers together. And
great character building.
Yeah. And I love using it for that and had teaching my kids, this is how you love other people.
They're serving other people even from a very young age.
Yeah. Yeah. And helping out and going around and picking up trash. And we had sidewalk chalk there for kids, and we might have had bubbles or something like that.
For kids to learn the value of hard work.
Yeah.
If there's a mom who's very on top of things and a hard worker herself, sometimes the tendency can be to work so much that the kids don't have to or don't learn that same value. And so it's when you have an overwhelming task like that, that's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mom can't do it all, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need all hands on deck. So the kids are working just as hard.
Yeah. And that's definitely a temptation for me. It's so much faster if I just do it myself and don't teach my kids how to. And I think that's another benefit to doing stuff ahead of time is I can be like, oh, okay, I can teach you how to do this now. I can task you with this 2 days in advance, getting all the mayonnaise out of the big bulk containers into the squeeze bottles to, streamline stuff. I have kids who are into different things. One of my kids is way more into decorating and that sort of thing. And so she came with me to the cutting gardens and we got a bunch of flowers and we just got the dollar beer steins because they're heavy at the Dollar Tree. They're heavy and will not blow over in the wind. And so we just stuck cutting garden flowers in those just to make it pretty and fun and,
That's a great tip.
Yeah. And just ordered cheap tablecloths off of Amazon. And yeah, it was just so fun. And I do have a picture of that because I took a moment because everybody just brought their own lawn chairs and stuff like that. We had families who brought, their strollers with their tents over them and stuff like that. They were there. They were camped out. They were ready to stay and just hang out and have fun. But I did take a moment. I just walked up to the kind of the top of the hill, the top of the park there and just looked out and I was just like, this is exactly because I'm not always the chatting with people isn't always the part that I have the easiest time with, but fostering the opportunity for other people to get to know each other is what I really enjoy doing. One of my kids was telling me the other day, like, you should have lived in Victorian England. And I'm like, if I did, I would have been the housekeeper. I would not have been the lady of the house, because I would like being behind the scenes, organizing everything, less about the actual like
putting on the hostessing, welcoming everyone
yeah.
with all of the right words.
I'm still learning that part at the age of 41.
I'm sure you do a fabulous job.
Well, thank you. I hope I'm getting there. But yeah, just being able to look out over, easily 250 people, just sitting and talking.
Great time together.
And eating together and getting to know one another. It's like, yes, this is what we hoped for. This is what we wanted to do.
Bringing the neighborhood closer together, and people can wave to each other now, or say hi, or help in an emergency. I mean, it just really fosters that same sort of camaraderie that you were talking about with the fire team. Or what was it? The volunteer fire department? Fire department team.
Yeah, just helping people get to know each other and just know who they can turn to. Like, I'm going to be out of town. Can you water my plants? Or, oh, you're the one who, thank you so much for having taken out all those nasty shrubs when you moved into that house. That was awesome. We love the way your house looks now. Like that sort of thing. Like, yeah, it was really fun.
What do you do to prep for people coming to your home? So you had crews coming to your home. You have small children to consider. What is your best prep tip?
I just start as early as possible. And so now that my kids are in school during the day, that enables me. I set up our tables in the morning as early as possible. Like once the kids are headed off to school, I'll sweep and clean and everything like that and set up the tables just so I can have that part done. I mean, we have a wood dining room table. I move that because it doesn't expand enough. I move that into our family room as a backup. And then I set up 2 6-foot tables in our dining room and throw one of the canvas drop cloth tablecloths over that. So
Where do you buy those, by the way? Because that's
Amazon.
Been mentioned before. So you just search drop cloth.
Yeah, Amazon canvas drop cloth. And I think they must be 4 feet by 13 feet, I think, because it's just the perfect size for 2 6-foot folding tables end to end. So I'll set those up and just get everything ready to go as early as possible, because that just helps me feel less stressed at the last minute. I love finding recipes that allow me to not have to do a lot at the last minute. So cinnamon rolls are great because I can throw those in the fridge overnight, the night before or that morning, whatever. Pulled pork, it's just sitting in your oven. There's not much that you have to do to it. Oven or crock pot, whichever method you use.
Coleslaw needs to be made ahead because the flavors have to meld. If you actually make it right before you serve it, it's just going to taste like raw cabbage.
Yeah.
It does not taase very good.
No.
I made that mistake one time. I'm like, why does this not taste like my normal coleslaw or my mom's coleslaw or whatever recipe I was making? And I realized, it needs to sit for a while.
It's time. So finding those recipes that need time are actually helpful. Just trying to bless the people coming into my home. Because when we were first married, I loved polishing silver and having china and stuff like that. But people would come in, they'd be like, I don't know what fork to use. And that was obviously a big consideration when we had the duty day dinners, because these are college students and we don't know what background they're coming from. They could be coming from any end of the spectrum. So I just wanted to make it as low key and easy for them as possible. So it was all disposable dishes. The coffee cups were disposable coffee cups so they could take them with them on a call if they had to go on a call. Learning that was just really great, and seeing how it was not about me, essentially. That's what it came down to. It was not about using hospitality to glorify myself, but letting it bless others. And that was a good lesson for me to learn. So yeah, just thinking about who is coming over, who we've invited, and trying to figure out what's going to be the best way to make them feel at home, to make them feel uncomfortable, or make them feel comfortable, rather.
And make them not feel uncomfortable.
Yes. So like if you're having somebody over who's a major foodie, I'm probably not going to serve them a basic taco or tater tot nachos or something like that. As much as tater tot nachos have their place, we take those to basketball and football games all the time because everybody wants something hot and salty.
Okay, that recipe has to come out too. A lot of people that listen have kids and they're like, what? Tater tot nachos?
Basically make nachos, but you use tater tots instead of chips.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a big, my kids love that. And it's very Idaho. I think it's Atalanos is the Mexican restaurant in Spokane. They call them Idaho nachos.
That's great.
They serve something like that.
That's
so
great.
yeah. And again, it's, the sort of thing where people can dress it up however they want. So
Mm-hmm.
they're just figuring out who you're having over and trying to love them through the little things. Like, would it be better if I used plastic? Like, is it a family with 5 kids under the age of 8? Plasticware is probably going to be more of a blessing to them than them having to be like, don't move your glass.
Her grandmother's china.
Yeah, exactly. so yeah, that's my biggest is really just thinking about who you're having over and how to love them best in those few hours.
Yes. Well, you really touched on it. My next question was going to be your best advice for showing warm hospitality. But really, I feel like, do you have anything else to add to that? Because it does sound like really that's a way to make them feel welcome.
Yeah,
it's just making them feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think considering your audience, like you said, is just so important. And there is a place for China and fancy things. But you do have to consider really that's not every day.
Right. I grew up, my dad was in the military. And so every time we had people over, it felt like a much more formal event. And so just being able to step out of that and make it such that, especially because we just have such a variety of people here in Moscow from so many different backgrounds. And there are those who are from a more formal background or from a more casual background. And so just kind of trying to be open to all of it and set the bar not low, but achievable and appealing and welcoming to everyone. One thing that we like to do for last minute guests, especially on Sundays, and this is just our normal Sunday habit anyway, but we don't cook on Sundays. Not necessarily out of principle, but it's just like we don't cook on Sundays.
You want a day of rest.
Yeah, exactly. So what we do is just a giant, I won't call it a charcuterie board because some people might take offense at what I actually serve on these. But we just do a giant snacky board and we'll do dips and veggies and sliced meats and fancy cheeses and stuff like that. And so
sounds amazing.
We love it. It's our favorite. But it's so easy to bring others into that. And it's such a casual thing. So they don't feel like if we've invited them over last minute, they don't feel like they're interrupting as much or invading or anything along those lines. And I think everybody that we've ever served that to, they've been like, this is such a good idea. We're going to do this on Sundays too. And it just frees me up as well to not have to worry so much about the menu or anything like that. And
you can always be changing it up and finding new things and trying new crackers or switching up the olives. Or, there's all kinds of little things. And those things could be stored in your pantry.
Yep.
So that if you did have an extra family, you just pull out a couple more things. That's not a big deal at all. That is a great idea.
Yeah. And that it's a great place to put, like if you go to Costco and they are sampling some fun thing, like a new cheese or whatever, a new dip. And you're like, oh, that's fun, but it's a little expensive. I don't really want it. Like, I can't just for no reason get this and take it home. But if you do this every Sunday, then you can say, I will get this and this will be our Sunday cheese for this week or this special dip or whatever the special
it's
dessert.
Something to look forward to. It's a special day. It's a special dinner.
Yep. So that is
wonderful.
That is our Sunday tip.
Costco has variety packs. I'm sure there's stores too, but I was just noticing in one of their ads that they do sell a box of crackers where it's 3 or 4 different type of crackers. Yep. That's all you would need to buy for a charcuterie board.
Yep, exactly.
You can do other things too, breads or
and we'll switch up we'll have wheat thins this week and we'll have Triscuits next week and we'll have goldfish. The things that my kids would always ask for at the store, I'd be like, no, you do not need to take fancy crackers
get
to school.
Goldfish every day at lunch. But on Sunday, it might be on the board.
Exactly. So that works really well.
That's a fabulous idea. Do you do the same sorts of drinks that you mentioned earlier, or do you just do water? What do you do for a drink?
So on Sundays, we do a bottle of wine. That's when we get to share just a little bit with our kids, trying to get them to have it not be, a taboo sort of thing, but definitely a just occasionally special thing sort of a thing. But then they also get a fancy thing. So they'll pick out like the 4-pack of the ginger beer at Winco or whatever, or
special soda.
They love the Death Water. Those fancy cans.
Which you think is like, what in the world? And it's sparkling water, right?
Sometimes it's flavored if you're lucky. But they think that stuff is amazing. Yeah, they love that. Or like in the summer, they'll love to get a jug of sweet tea. just that sort of thing. So it's definitely it's the day that we choose to say yes to more of the things. And it's definitely just like a taste and see that the Lord is good. We'll try to get like fruits that are in season, fancy new ones that they've never tried yet. Like if we can find something new, like dragon fruit or star fruit or something like that, we try to shop the international, if you can call it the international aisle at Winco, and pull in some different things. Like I think we've tried every Mexican prepackaged dessert that they have. And we can tell you that some of them are not good. Some of them are good.
Well, at least you know that now.
Yeah, we
can
know.
Pull it onto your board. We know what's good and what's not.
Yeah.
It would also be really fun if you make a trip to Spokane.
Oh, yes.
Trader Joe's. That's when you can try and sample all the...
But it's so bad because I buy so much then when I go.
That's true, because then you're making the excuse of,
I'm like,
it'll be for Sunday dinner.
Exactly. And it's been 3 months since I've been up here. And the kids
three
would
more
love
months
this.
until I get back.
And I need that orchid to put in the middle of the table with the charcuterie board.
It honestly is a good thing there's not a Trader
It's
Joe's
so good.
in town.
It's a big
good.
blessing.
Of course, maybe if we had access to it, we would have more self-control.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe not.
I think the habit is too ingrained at this point of being like, oh, well,
yes.
gotta try it. Yeah.
Sunday dinner's coming
I
up.
know.
Inviting new families at church. We need extra.
Yeah, who knows how many might come over this week?
We need to double the cheese.
Yeah,
I think.
exactly. We need to get that one too. Yeah.
Those chocolate truffles, well,
Yep.
it's been a while since we've had those, and we know they're good.
Yep. Oh, they have stroop waffles this week. Oh, well, I guess I have to.
Yep. It's just the thing to do.
Yep. It's so true.
I love it.
Yeah.
What is your must-have kitchen item, and where can we find it?
A scale. And this plays more into the bakery because I want my product obviously to be consistent. I don't want to be like, well, I don't know why this batch didn't turn out, or promise somebody a batch of croissants and be like, I don't know why they're flat.
Right.
So I do everything by weight. I love having that predictability.
Do you have a standard? Well, by standard, it's probably, when I think of a scale for a regular home cook in America, it's a fairly small one. You know, on Amazon, you can order from $20 or something.
Yeah.
But since you cook in bigger batches, do you have a bigger scale, or what would you recommend for somebody who does do baking?
So I just have a basic electronic one off of Amazon. And I think I'm on my third or fourth one because they'll get dropped, or one got left on the stove. Not by me, by one of my children doing a Knights Fest dessert last year. That was really funny. It's like, because we have a glass top stove and a very small kitchen, and so it doubles as counter space. But then also the knobs for our oven and cooktop are on the front of the oven, so they're easily bumped. So anyway, I just recently had one die and had to order another one. And I was like, I should have a backup of these. But yeah, and it was, they're like $15, $18 on Amazon, and it's just a very standard one. The only thing that I have to be careful of is the maximum weight capacity on them, because I'll get, up there 2-3 kilograms of stuff. So it adds up pretty quickly. So that's definitely my must have. And then, I wouldn't be able to function without my KitchenAid. I know most people have those at this point, but I still run into the occasional person who doesn't. I'm like, I don't know how you function without that.
Do you have a 6-quart, 8-quart? What kind do you have for all of your baking?
Mine, I have 2.
Well, you need it if you're running a bakery from your home.
Yeah, I have 2. But the one I use the most is just the one from Costco. So I think that's 6.
Probably.
Yeah.
Or 5.5 or 5.
It's not the 5. I know it's not the 5.
I bet it's the 6.
Yeah, I think so. I also, though, it was probably 12 years ago now, maybe even 15, that they came out with the big new one that I think was 7.25. And they only sold it through Williams-Sonoma. And so it was like, but I really, really need this. And so it was a Christmas present from extended family all pooled together. But I still have the bowl for that, and it fits in the 6-quart. So that's really handy because it has higher sides, and I can fit, if I'm going to put in a big batch of, 6 dozen chocolate chip cookies, it fits easily.
Oh, that's amazing. It's wonderful that it fits. Usually those things, they don't make them interchangeable because they want you to buy a second one. So that's a blessing.
Yeah. Someday I will have like a 20-quart Hobart or something like that. But right now we don't have the space. So
that would take up a giant chunk in your kitchen.
You can't even put it on your countertop. Like, it's too tall. So.
Right. It'd have to be on the floor.
Yeah.
And with kids running through, you'd have to make sure it's not real dusty or something the toy got dropped in there.
Yep. And you think that, well, my youngest is 9. It's not a problem anymore. But it's like, we have friends over for parish group and stuff like that. You know, how long is it going to be till we have grandkids? There's really a very, very small window where you don't have to worry about that.
A big bowl on the floor would be very tempting.
Yeah, exactly.
Very tempting to
with knobs
put
that
all
you can
kinds
move.
of things and touch and all 100%. Of that.
100%. Yeah, exactly. So someday, maybe.
Yes.
We'll see.
Yep.
We'll see what the Lord wants to do there.
Well, do you have a good story for us from all your years of hospitality? Do you have a story you want to share about something that happened, good or bad, besides the scale melting on the stove?
Yeah, the scale melting on
I guess
the
your
stove.
stove has her covered. How did you get it off your glass top?
Oh, just a razor blade.
Okay. It came off pretty
It
easy. It's just
off,
the scale had to go in the trash.
Yeah, scale definitely had to go in the trash. Yeah. To me, the hilarious thing is looking back at how overly prepared I always had to be. And just how type A I was.
You have to be that way or you can't have people over.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like when we would, I mean, it's a matter of hosting your first Thanksgiving as opposed to your 20th. And, you know, I had my schedule all written out for my first Thanksgiving, like 4 days in advance. Like I didn't have it written out 4 days in advance, had the first tasks 4 days in advance. And yeah, and it's just, you know, I don't need to do that anymore. And that is, you know, it's so good. And
you feel like you've leveled up.
Yeah, leveled up.
You've gone up in the level of being able to be hospitable where it's not just that stress of early days of figuring it out.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
a nice place to be for sure.
It is. It is. Like I remember in college watching a friend, she came home and she was going to make herself some soup for lunch and she just kind of winged it. And I was like, what? How do you know what to put in first? And
do you not look at a recipe?
What do you put in? How do you what if it's gross? Mm-hmm. And I just had like no framework whatsoever for this. It was all mystery. And now, you know, I can do that without thinking. So yeah, it's so much just, you know, it takes time and you just have to practice. Mm-hmm. There's nobody arrives. When I was little, I went to make brownies. And I used drinking cocoa instead of baking cocoa for the brownies. And my mom was like, yeah, no, that's not how it works. And then I'm pretty sure just a few years ago, one of my girls did the same thing. And I was like, well, you know,
it's going to be some really sweet
totally
brownies.
Understand how you did that. I think she was even cooking out of the same kids' cookbook that I had used. So it was really funny.
Oh, that's
like,
pretty great.
No, that's okay.
History on repeat.
Been there, done that.
Yep.
Yeah, we all make the same mistakes. Mm-hmm. It's fine.
Cocoa. What's the difference?
I'm sure they'll still fine, especially if you add some ice cream. You'll be fine. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
you can't really level up unless you just do it. There's no fast track. There's no shortcut. You just, in order to become more comfortable with opening your home and saying, come over for dinner.
Absolutely.
You just have to keep doing it. And there will be mistakes and there will be failures and there will be whatever. There will be great successes as well. There will be times that people walk out and you're like, wow, absolutely nothing went wrong.
Yeah.
And then other times when you realize, oh, I left the vegetables in the microwave.
I forgot to serve this part.
Sometimes you feel like, oh, what did I do? And nobody noticed or cared.
Nope. Nobody cares.
Or if they noticed a slight thing, they really didn't care.
Yeah.
You know,
because, you know, guests are usually a lot kinder than I'm not going to say than you expect them to be, but what you think you have to prepare for. You know, it's kind of like those, I don't know if you've seen those shorts on Facebook or whatever, where it's like what your mom expects guests are going to do when they come over is walk in the door and immediately like run their white glove over the baseboards. Like
on their white gloves, start checking the ceiling fan
Nobody's
at the top.
Nobody's going to do this. Nobody will do this. And yeah. So
and with food, I know I've mentioned this on here so many times, and it's because this is something that I've had to learn and still have to I struggle with it. I have to make myself not talk about what's wrong with the food.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's still good.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have made it better.
Yeah.
Where you think, this is not as good.
Yeah.
As I know I made a mistake here.
Guys, I can do better.
Right.
Trust me, I can do better than this. Yeah. No.
So then you go into detail about how you didn't sear the meat correctly, and that's why there's not as much flavor in the stew, and you really just crowded the pan and you were in a hurry and you shouldn't have been, and you've made it better before, and it's terrible. Then you make them uncomfortable and they feel like they're not they should really be criticizing the stew instead of enjoying it or whatever.
Yeah. Nobody knows how to respond to that. Like, it's like, it's fine. Like, stop worrying. Don't worry. Let's talk about something else.
It's kind of like people that post constant selfies.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the only response that you're supposed to give really is, no, you look so great.
It's fine.
no, your food is fine. And
Yeah.
compliment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think most people that are cooks that are, say, criticizing their own food are looking for compliments and
Right.
how great are you. I think it's more of they're just trying to be honest.
Yeah.
But that's not the time for
No.
honesty. When they leave, if you want to talk to your husband about it,
Yeah.
like, oh, I really, that soup wasn't as good as it normally is it? Maybe have a little team meeting then, but not when all the company's there.
Yeah. Not when everybody's there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, well, thank you for coming on and sharing all of your encouragement, your tips, the ideas for menus for having lots of people over. I will post some of her recipes in her must-have kitchen items on my website at comeoverfordinner.com, so you can find everything there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Until next time.